What's up, guys? Back with another Smite Meta update. As per usual, we go from Hunters or ADCs, and then we go all the way to Solo Lane. These are coming out every 2 weeks, because I realize that doing it every week could lead to a lot of repetition. Not a lot of big changes are happening between the patches, so it's best, I think, unless there's some serious changes, to just kind of keep it in a bi-weekly thing. Regardless, to no one's surprise, in the slightest, Jingwei is still on top for Hunters. She has absurd damage, the crit build does really well for her, and even with the removal of Devos, she's still incredibly powerful. Well, I wouldn't even say removal, the nerf of Devos, she's still incredibly powerful. Uller is someone you always have to consider in the ADC lane, just because of how powerful he is. Though he has a lot more success in mid and solo right now, he is very, very strong still. Another pick that is seeing quite a rise is Chernobog. Chernobog can be played in 3 roles viably. He is very powerful in ADC because of his early game. His early game isn't strong, but his late game is very good. His global rotation ability is unmatched with how fast he can get there in terms of ADCs. Apollo can get there a little bit after, and Jingwei takes some time because she has to back and fly over. Chernobog can get there almost instantly. His global vision, his global presence is just very, very dominant, and his damage and attack speed, all of that just makes him a very good pick right now. Outside of those 3, Ho Yi is still a pretty powerful pick. He does very well in the matchups right now, especially with crit being so prominent. His anti-crit passive is very, very good. Shibalanke has also seen a bit of a rise back up. Again, I think this is more attributing to the global factor he can have and the late game potential he has. Shibalanke is a very, very powerful late game ADC with a very good teamfight ultimate. Being able to turn off the lights, making everybody around them blind without a certain area is very, very powerful. And I would definitely look to start playing him a bit if you're a Hunter player looking for something new. Shibalanke hasn't been in the meta, in quotes, for quite a while, so definitely look to pick him up. Lastly, Charybdis is still pretty decent. I wouldn't call her the best of the best, but she's incredibly safe. She does a lot of damage, her attack speed's good, and she's just overall a decent pick. Alright. Supports. It's been... How do I describe this? Support in ranked is very different from support in competitive play. Support in ranked right now really sucks. There's no really way to sugarcoat it. It's just feels terrible in that you're behind and you just feel useless if you're not, like, at least remotely even with the rest of your team. Having said that, there's some still very powerful picks. If you're good with Umoja, you should definitely be spamming her in ranked. Her power level is based on the player who is playing them. You could be very creative with her rings, with her abilities, with her walls. But you can also just be a heal bot late game when you need to. Managing Omi and being able to play this character to the fullest is definitely something you should try to do. And if you are good at it, pick it up in ranked. Same goes for Ares. Ares is much more simple on a level than Umoja is. He doesn't have the intricacies that her kit does, but he has high damage, a good ultimate that burns beads, very high defense, and he's basically a healer with his 2 in sovereignty, giving his entire team 100 HP 5 around him. It's kind of nuts. And his early game pressure is very good. You just need to hit your chains. Khepri has been very strong in the past couple patches, or the past 2 patches. It's always good to have Scarab's Blessing, but his CC's decent, his prots are decent, and he has decent peel. He's pretty okay right now, you know? And he doesn't really get hurt too much by the DR changes because this isn't affected by it, and neither is this. Abduct isn't affected by it. I think the root is, actually. No, I don't think it isn't. Never mind, it's not. But his grab is not affected by DR. Strangely enough, actually, before I talk about somebody, let me talk about Geb. Geb is a really good counter pick to the Nox, the E-sets, the heavy beads burning comps because of Stone Shield. He is pretty decent in support. I've been enjoying him a lot. Maxing Stone Shield first makes him a very, very annoying thing to deal with for junglers. And it also keeps your stupid mids alive. So yeah. But strangely enough, Kumbhakarna has seen a comeback. And this I don't really understand, but he's doing pretty well in ranked. From what I've seen at least. I don't know about the exact numbers of his win rate, but he's doing pretty well. Epic Uppercut is a very good tool for team fighting. Mighty Yawn, or was it? Yeah, it is Mighty Yawn. Is a very good CC if you're running away or trying to peel and your teammates know not to hit it. And the root, while taking a very long time to charge, is a very good CC. His CC is relatively consistent, other than, I guess, well, Groggy Strike is very consistent within terms of its setup, and so is Epic Uppercut. Mighty Yawn less so, but he's seen a rise, and he's not bad. Another thing that has seen a bit of a return, strangely enough, is Serket's support. Despite the shifts away and the changes, the character's kit still fits very, very well for a harassing, diving support in the early game. And in the late game, she becomes a very hard to kill tank with low nose mask and all that stuff. The true damage on her ultimate is still very strong. And yeah, she's just very, very annoying to deal with and very, very slippery, which is why she still sees play in ranked. One other person I do want to talk about before Nox and ESET are still very powerful picks. They've fallen off a bit because of how far behind supports are and how easy it is to pick on mages. But if you go an early low nose mask, that kind of remedies that fact a little bit. But it's still a very, very powerful pick that you should definitely be looked to play. Nox and ESET. So mid laners. Mid laners feel weird this patch. You can play a lot of things in mid, but it's also, I think, because a lot of mages aren't very good right now. I think Thoth is still decent, but again, I've said in previous videos he gets bullied by the hunters and the assassins in mid lane, but Thoth is still pretty decent. The Morgan is still pretty decent. Baba Yaga. Let me actually talk about Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga has seen a rise in play recently, and I think it's because late game is being reached much more consistently. And a double stacking build has come about. And who better to double stack on than a god that literally gives you free stacks from her passive? Baba Yaga's damage is very high and consistent in the late game. She's relatively safe. I wouldn't call her the safest thing because the pot is very easy to catch out with the right CCs. However, Home Sweet Home is a very powerful ability late game. And you can run games with this character with the obscene amount of burst that she has. So definitely look to pick her up. She's weird at first, very weird at first, but you'll get used to her eventually, and you will see you could do a lot of work with Baba Yaga. Oleron has been played a bit more in mid, which I honestly don't really get, but I see the appeal. Sanctified Field is a very good ability, and it's quite possibly the best ultimate in the game. Probably is. Regardless, he can get bullied very early by hunters and such, but his late game is still very powerful. He's a late game magical ADC, and that's what he does. He does his job, and he does it well, and he's been doing it in the mid lane, which is kind of weird for me. Regardless, like I said before, Ullr, very, very powerful in the mid lane. High burst, very high kill pressure. It's very difficult to deal with him, like in the early game on one as a mage. He can kind of just, if he hits an axe, he can guaranteed half your health, if not just straight out kill you. After 2 items, he might as well just have you dead to rights if you get hit by an axe. Chiron is being played in the mid lane quite a bit too. He's not the same kill pressure as Ullr, however, he does have quite a lot of damage, quite a lot of poke, and long range damage with the cleanse. He's pretty decent right now. And if you're looking to get a high pressure mid lane, but you don't really want to play Ullr, look at Chiron. A Muzikab, very similar to Ullr, except for not the explosive kill pressure. He has quite a lot of poke, quite a lot of push, but again, he could be capitalized on because of his lack of escape. Strangely enough, I wouldn't recommend this for everybody, but there has been a guy who's been playing Scotty mid and ranked, and ADC. I mention it here because the guy's name is Square, and he's been tearing up the high-level rank scenes, the GM lobbies, Masters lobbies, with the Scotty pick. I do think it's in part because people aren't used to playing against Scotty. Scotty is a rare pick, and she's honestly, I hate this fucking character. Please remove her from the game. God damn it. This fucking ability, I swear to God. Anyway, the character herself has a lot of burst and has a surprising amount of ability to just fight. She can stand and fight very, very well. Similarly to an Amuzinkob, except for she's a bit more slippery than him, pun intended. And Calder's annoying as hell. That's really it. Honorable mentions, Cleo is still a very powerful mid pick. Susano is still very decent in the mid lane. Camazot's Bastet, all playable in the mid lane. Yeah. Junglers. A lot of people have been switching Cleo to the jungle after her nerfs. I don't necessarily agree with this. I still think she's a very, very powerful solo laner. But a lot of people have been switching her into the jungle, I think just to try her out a bit more. She's very high burst, decent CC, and the ability to go into walls and just control spaces is very, very strong. The character is still very strong even after her repeated nerfs. Well, the only nerf that was relevant, in my opinion, was the most recent one when they nerfed her base damage. The rest of the nerfs were taps on the wrist that barely did remotely anything. She still has the ability to be uninteractable in multiple spaces, but I'll talk about that more in solo lane. Susano has seen a bit of a rise in play as well. His very high burst, and he's good at killing ADCs if he catches them out without a relic or just before they could use their relics. He can explode people very, very quickly, and that's why some people are looking at him now, because killing ADCs is kind of the priority right now. While with the bonus balance, that might have shifted a little bit because of the changes to the warriors and stuff. People are still looking to explode the ADCs, and Susano does it very, very well. Bakasura is a terror. In high-level rank games and in low-level rank games, Bakasura has the ability to get ahead very, very easily just by simply farming and doing a couple of invades. If he gets an early kill, he can just snowball that lead very, very well and carry games. Even in high-level lobbies, he could just do that. He's very powerful, and his damage is very consistent. His items are good right now. Being able to buy Golden Blade early on, or buying Golden Blade early on, gives this character everything he wants, gives him movement speed, attack speed, and a little bit of power, but the movement speed and the attack speed are the big thing, and Golden Blade just kind of runs it. Similarly, Nemesis. Same shit, different coat of paint, essentially. She has very high prot shred. If she gets a lead early on and gets her items on, she could be a terror and carry games. She benefits very much from the Golden Blade build currently going around. Golden Blade is just overall very, very strong. A lot of other items have been nerfed, and Golden Blade has remained with the only item with the 10% movement speed stat, as well as just it's powerful right now. And where is he? Mercury. Mercury has because of the late game ability of the game, not late game ability, but the late game trend that has been going on right now with most games, Mercury is being picked up a lot more and valued. He likes Golden Blade, it's pretty decent on him, and he loves crit, and crit's very strong right now still. The character is very powerful with his a unique ability to be set up as well as a hyper carry. He does quite a lot, and he can kind of turn a game around with one good sonic boom and a couple of good crits. He again can run away with a game very easily and just kind of win it for you. I will mention, Gilgamesh has almost completely fallen out of the jungle meta. He's still decent. He's still good. He's not, like, terrible. But a lot of junglers have shied away from him because he doesn't box hunters as well as he used to. He still can kick their ass pretty easily. But a lot of the items favor him right now, but a lot of the other junglers just kind of murk him. Mercury, Nemesis, Bakasura all do very well into him in 1v1 engagements. And he's overall just fallen out of favor. I do think he's still very strong and definitely still playable in the jungle, but he's less so than he was before. Same goes for Erlang. Erlang is still decent, and the items he wants to build, he can even build Golden Blade, and it feels good on him. But again, he kind of gets out-traded by Nemesis, Bakasura, Mercury, all of them. And his lack of knock-up on the turtle has really hurt the character with his burst potential. You can actually walk up to Erlang and fight him now, as opposed to getting instantly exploded because of his CC. Osiris has seen a bit of rise in play as well. He does quite a bit in terms of damage, and the build favors him right now with the auto attack focus. He can explode people in the backline by just kind of beating them down. He also is just overall pretty decent. Lord of the Afterlife is a really good anti-heal ability. Judgment Teller has really good damage reduction, and he has high poke. He's just overall pretty powerful. Now to solo lane. To no one's surprise in the slightest, when you change Glad Shield, you change King Arthur. King Arthur has risen to the top of the Soul Lane meta pretty quickly after that Glad Shield change. Now that it doesn't have a minimum threshold for health for it to do the bonus damage, King Arthur feels incredibly oppressive with that item. I typically like going Salve into Glad Shield because you could just kind of live forever against a physical laner. And if you're against a magical, you can even delay the Glad Shield, or you can get a magical defense item and get a Glad Shield. Overall, the character has now been brought back into relevance because Glad Shield has been brought back into relevance. This character, I don't want to say he lives and dies by it, but his highs come when Glad Shield's high, and his lows come when Glad Shield's lows. Similarly to someone who's not as strong as they used to be, Kleena. She's still an incredibly powerful pick. In Soul Lane, she has the ability to just straight up say, I'm not going to interact with you for X amount of time because I have my ultimate up, and I could just walk away. Her cooldown is much longer, but her first two items typically do have cooldown in them. Soul Eater, Transcendence, Jotuns, whatever you build, right? So you could just choose to not interact with your lane opponent, and that is an incredibly powerful tool. You choose when you take fights with them, because they have to step up to clear, where you can just straight up throw out an ultimate, and it doesn't matter. Something I mentioned a couple patches ago was Bakasura. His early game in the Soul Lane is awful. But after an item or two, and then he starts to feel very good. He does the same thing Bakasura Jungle can do, just a little bit worse. Back over to Warriors. Osiris, Bellona still feel pretty decent. The Glad Shield changes benefit Osiris more than they benefit Bellona, but both characters are definitely still playable. Cullen has seen a bit of a rise as well because of the Glad Shield changes. Again, this character is good with Glad Shield, and it shows. And I think that's it. That's all I can really think of. Oh, what am I, stupid? Ullr. Ullr's a nut soul laner. He does the same thing he does to mid laners, but to people who are supposed to be tanks. He just blows them up, and after 2 items, he could just kill you. Character's nuts. Definitely pick him up if you're a soul laner. And that's about it. Thanks.